Once again, it's Thursday. Woo-hoo. Pull back. I'm sure I could find more interesting ways to like do this. Good morning. Stereo sound. And welcome to Thursday Sun Dragon Sideshow.
The Adventures of Liz and Rebecca with Becky and
Dear Becky and Lizzy
today.
Yes. So, hello. We have 2 letters today. Did you check your email?
I have not. I will check it.
Okay, while she's checking. I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner of Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina.
It's kind of foggy today.
Yeah.
We've been doing weather updates as we
yeah, it was foggy on the way in today. Misty, almost rainy, but more misty. I dropped my car off to get checked and walked over here. And on the drive-in, thought I would need my raincoat. Forgot my raincoat from the shop, but didn't need it because it wasn't rain, it was fog. What's that, the old wives thingy about August, every day that there's fog in the morning?
Yeah, there could be snow.
There could be snow in the winter. And that was like every day of August. And it's still happening and it's September. Because, you know, we have constructs of time. And the weather's like, I don't care, I'm going to be foggy.
It's still March.
Yeah, it is. So who are you?
I'm Liz. I'm the minion at Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina.
It's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I'm still getting going. Maybe headachy. Haven't decided yet. My brain hasn't decided what direction it's going in yet. But, you know, water, hydration.
Water. Yay.
So, and we had to reboot the router right before we started. So, like, you know, the shop is reflecting us right now. But I think things should be fine. Technology is great, except for when it's not. It's one of my phrases. So, one of the people I used to teach with up in Pennsylvania, Westtown, Pennsylvania, would say that too. Technology is great, except for when it's not. Then it kind of sucks. So when you're really dependent on technology, when it doesn't work or doesn't want to work, like the Wi-Fi being wonky this morning, it's a problem.
I have no emails.
You have no, okay. So we'll get to our letters here. This one, this was the pretty one we talked about yesterday that we probably should have answered last week, maybe. The guy from the gem mine who handed it to us said they've had it for a while. So we apologize. Wasn't our fault, but we apologize. But we're going to, and this has multiple questions in it. So it's like a 3-parter, which I've already forgotten. I read it yesterday and I've already forgotten. So it's all new and fresh. Yay. Okay. Dear Lizzy and Becky. Oh, you get to go first in this letter. No, it's okay. In your experience, we'll take this one question at a time. Okay. In your experience, is there any truth to the curse of the boyfriend sweater? That's a great question. So yes, it's always fun for us to tell new knitters about the boyfriend sweater curse. So for those of you who may not know, about half of you out there who knit are like, oh yes, I've heard of this. And the other half are going, what? The boyfriend sweater curse. Superstition says that if you knit your boyfriend a sweater, you will break up. Now, the truth, is there any truth to that? That's a very subjective thing. And you know, there's so many psychological ways we could break this down. I mean, if you want to examine why this might be a superstition. So superstitions, probably it's almost like stereotypes in that there might be some kernel of somewhere it came from, right? That shouldn't necessarily be applied to the whole, but it's happened often
if you walk outside barefoot.
Yeah, you know, those kind of things, right? Don't walk under a ladder or have a black cat cross your path, that kind of thing. A few people had bad things happen to them, so don't do it. I don't know if it's really true. I think it might be a test of your relationship, though, in a way, you know, in that it's it could be. I feel like we've talked with Carol about this too on some of the mornings she's been hanging out here pre-pandemic times, about the whole idea of a sweater is a big level of commitment. And so for some boyfriends or some significant others, we shouldn't just, keep it stereotypical. For a significant other, a sweater is like a sign that a relationship is serious. And some people might freak out with that. It's like asking someone to move in with you. Sometimes that works, and sometimes you break up. So, but that is, it's become a superstition. I keep wanting to say stereotype. It's become my S words. It's become a superstition because it's happened enough times to enough people in the general cosmos.
Anecdotally, just around here, like when Bernie and I were dating, I didn't know how to crochet or knit, so it was like whatever. Mm-hmm. But it's
but
almost.
Then you up and made him a sweat.
No, I started one and then ripped it out like last year, but because I dropped.
Oh, that's right. You were gonna make him. Yeah. But you've been married for a while now, so that's years. Different.
Yeah, but it's anecdotally, it's the, you get a whole bunch of people sitting around the table that knit, and somebody mentions the boyfriend sweater curse, and like 5 people will be like, oh my gosh, yes, like no, don't. It's almost like tattoos. Like you don't tattoo your significant other's name.
And they say, what is it? There's isn't there a way to break the curse or something?
There is a way to break the curse that we have heard. One of our knitters said you have to intentionally knit your hair into the sweater if
we want to get super superstitious.
If you want to break the curse.
Yeah, that's like, if I want us to stay together forever, where's my hair? No.
Yeah, I mean, everybody winds up knitting their,
Well, that's going to happen unintentionally.
Yeah, but you have to intentionally. I'm not sure how much of your hair you have to knit in, but
every strand. Oh my gosh, you'd be bald. Yeah. I will say, personal experience, the first real garment I knit was a sweater for my then boyfriend. And it's the sweater that I regale all my intro knitters and crocheters with my lessons about gauge. Because I did a gauge swatch. You all get to hear it now. Because now that I've said it, I have to tell a story.
You have to tell a story.
I did a gauge swatch. It's the first real. I didn't even make a sweater for myself. I made one for him. And I did what you're supposed to do, knit a gauge swatch. And I might have told the story on here before. Oh, well. And I measured, and I was only measuring an inch, which is instead of a larger, like 4 inches. And I had 7 stitches per inch instead of 7.5, which meant my stitches were too big. I needed more stitch quantity to fit into the same amount of space. And I said, I'll just knit tight. I'll just pull tight the whole time. The one thing you have is consistent control over when you're knitting or crocheting is the size of your tool, not your tension, the size of your tool. So I jumped into this sweater on the round raglan seam. Shout out to Carla, who was here yesterday. We were talking about the leisure art sweaters. It was a leisure art pattern. It came out looking proportionally like a sweater. I was so excited. It was a dress on. It was huge. Chest hair poked out the top. That gets the most laughs when I tell the story, but it's true. Finally found a guy at Fit, our friend, who is much bigger than my then boyfriend. Now, here, bringing it back to the boyfriend sweater curse, we got married. So we didn't break up. However, we also got divorced. So does that prove the boyfriend sweater curse long term? I don't know.
But you're considering, or you've started a sweater for Brian.
I've started at least one sweater for Brian, who is my husband-like person, I like to say. We live together. And so that's one of the things is because relationship definitions have shifted from the boyfriend just being someone you're dating.
Yeah.
So that adds a level of complication into the boyfriend sweater curse. Someone you're living with may not fall into the same category. I have started. I've gotten this far. Have I stalled out because of the boyfriend sweater curse? Probably not. But I could blame it on that. So So there's that.
You spelled out because,
but it is
it's
a
a
thing.
sweater.
It's like, I gotta say, if there's any like superstitions in knitting and crocheting, that might be one of the biggest ones.
Yeah.
Like the lore behind that is huge. I think it really depends on how, on the level of your relationship.
Yeah.
If you're casually dating, I wouldn't make someone a sweater. They might run screaming. They might not.
Well, and who knows whether it was because of the sweater or because of, other, like with your boyfriend sweater and your husband.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it had anything to do with your sweater.
I don't
that
think
you
we
made
got
him.
divorced like 5 or 6 years later because I made him a sweater.
Yeah.
But, anyway, yeah. So, gauge your level of commitment or their level of commitment and make an appropriate project for them based on that. Like it's the whole, like, is someone knitworthy?
Yeah.
Like a boyfriend usually is knitworthy, but it's like, buying them an extra nice, do you get chocolates and flowers or do you get a ring? Like, where are you at in your relationship? Maybe test or have just not like test as in like, let's ask like random kind of passive aggressive questions. No, have an honest discussion. Where's our relationship? Are we comfortable in our relationship? Do we see this going somewhere?
For me, like, I've stalled out knitting Bernie a sweater, and part of it is I have to make a full sweater for him. So like,
he's a big guy. I mean,
well, he's tall.
Guy,
he's tall. So
Yeah.
like 5 inches of torso on the sweater, like I make mine, isn't gonna work.
Crop sweaters don't tend to be a guy thing.
And
Depends on
then
the guy.
losing the will to live on the sleeves.
Crop sweater would be a mess. Who's a friend of mine. Anyway,
Yeah.
different person.
And so like mine, and then I chase butterflies anyway.
Mhm.
So it's like I could start a sweater
Mhm.
for him. Promise him the sweater. We've been married for 25 years. I know it's not going to break us up, but he might never get the sweater.
Yeah.
Like, just because.
Or like, I've got a scarf and a sweater that I'm supposed to be making for Brian, and I have completed neither. Like don't let them know ahead of time and then not deliver. But here's the thing I would say. I wouldn't use the sweater as a test of your relationship.
Yeah.
I would have the conversation and about where the relationship is. And then, if you're in a really good place, make the sweater. Not going to break up because you made him a sweater. But if you make a sweater just to see which direction the relationship goes, that could go poorly.
Yeah.
So, but yes, thanks for bringing that up. That's awesome. Oh, this is in parentheses. So Becky directed at me. Okay. Why did you open a yarn shop? And there's a PS question too. So I can address the why'd I open a yarn shop. It's funny, I had dreams of opening a yarn shop well before I had the knowledge and wherewithal to do so. I just really love knitting. I started knitting, I'd like to say, around the turn of the century. And that kind of is going to lead to the next question.
120
This
years
is sincerely a fiber friend. Yeah. Olden days. Now seems so far away. Right around 2000 or so. I'll save the stories for the next question. But serious knitting, I started when I started my first job at Germantown Friends School. And I remember the first thing I knitted was a baby blanket for the woman I was the assistant teacher to. Shout out to Jenny. And it got me through hard times. It got me through that marriage, I was like, why am I bringing my knitting with me everywhere, even to like parties? And it was because it was my coping mechanism in a good way, and I loved being able to make things. And then as a teacher, in my former life, I was a secondary school teacher, high school teacher. I've taught everything from elementary to high school. I like teaching as well. I like being able to share what I know how to do. And I have 2 degrees in religious studies, and yet this kept calling at me. And back when before I was part of budget cuts at one of my schools, I was going through like what you could call the 7-year itch of what do I want to do with my life. Every time I kind of sat down to say, what do I want to do with my life? Should I be teaching in another school? Should I be teaching a different subject? Should I go back to school to get a degree in something else like graphic design? There's so many options. Yarn shop was always one of them. When I was up in Pennsylvania, I started teaching knitting on the side. I would meet people at cafes, or I would go to their houses, or I didn't really work at a yarn shop yet. And I kind of like, it expanded into this, I could run a yarn shop. It would be so cool. I could do it. I really didn't have the knowledge to be able to do that. That would have been back in like 2010, 2011. I've learned so much, A, since then, just before opening a shop, and B, since opening a yarn shop. But there was just kind of the bug. Way back then, I started talking to people about finances and business plans, and what would it take to start my own business, to do it on my own. And I found it would take way too much at that point in my life. And then I moved down to start teaching in Georgia, about an hour and a half away from here. And part of that journey led me to a yarn shop in Clarksville, Georgia, where I started working on the weekends. I started teaching lessons because I'd been teaching lessons more. I talked to yarn shops up in Pennsylvania about teaching for them. And it hadn't really gone anywhere as like an employee or a contractor, whatever. And then this yarn shop in Clarksville, Georgia, I did start doing it there. And I started running the register. I started picking up any information I could. I learned so much about yarn. I already had the idea I wanted to run a yarn shop. And then I realized how much I didn't know by working in a yarn shop. And I did that for about 5 years. And the first time I thought about opening a yarn shop, it was necessity because I got laid off from my job up in Pennsylvania. Again, budget cuts. They had to cut 10 full-time teachers. I happened to be one of them. And that was like a scramble of what do I do with my life? But then I found a job in Georgia and I did really well there. When I jumped ship from that job to do this, it wasn't because I had no other options. It was, I actually made the conscious choice to leave my job, which while it was a steady job and a great option and a paycheck, I was exhausted and I was burnt out and I wasn't happy. And it wasn't necessarily their fault. It was teaching is hard and exhausting. And I was teaching at boarding schools for 12 years. That's a 24/7 job. So is being a small business owner in a different way. But I look at it now as everything was training for running the shop. I remember having a conversation with Brian at one point when I was just really low and didn't know what I wanted to do. And should I stay here? Should I go? What should I, And he said, he's the genesis of a lot of this stuff, actually. He's a keeper.
You should knit him a sweater.
I should make him a sweater. Mm-hmm. Funny that I am. I just don't know where it is at the moment. But he said, the only time I see you happy is when you come back from the yarn shop. And that would be working on a full day on a Saturday after teaching for a full week. I would come home with more energy than when I left. And I said, yeah, I always had this dream of starting a yarn shop. And back in Pennsylvania, I was like, well, I'll have to start it. Like I didn't have the funds. I knew I couldn't get the funds because as a teacher, I have no collateral, no anything. And where to do it. I didn't really want to stay in Pennsylvania. I had no tie to that other than my job. Anywhere, the logical idea was to do it maybe near one of my family members so I could move in with them to help with costs. And the places where my family lived didn't necessarily look like a viable option. So it was location and money. I said, that's one of the main reasons I haven't done it. But since then, I gained all this knowledge where I really felt like I could do it finally. And, long story long, he said, well, let me help with that. Maybe I can help with that. And in the beginning, he wanted to pay for the business and do everything. And I was just like, no, if I do this, I'm going to do it on my own, the business part of it. However, what we did is that we share a lot in that he pays the home bills and I pay the business bills. I managed to find a way to get a loan to start this business, but it was a loan only for the business, not for my living expenses too, which is what I would have to do if I was going to get started on my own, because as a teacher, I didn't have a whole lot of savings. I've got a retirement account, don't really want to tap into that, but having that on the back burner is what made the loan possible. And then I said, well, the other thing's location. I'm not sure where I would do it. And he said, well, I have piano students who used to buy their yarn in Brevard, and they're part of a knitting group in Cashers. You at least have the Cashers knitters. And now I look back and I'm like, if he only knew, because that led to me. He wanted to be in Brevard. And so he's like, hey, look at Brevard, because then I could move to Brevard and it'd be awesome. And I did my research. I did my market plan and found that it would not only be the Cashers knitters. And so I put a lot of work into that, and here we are, like 4 years later, 3 years from opening the business. But I started plotting. January of 2017 is when I seriously started plotting. That was my first visit to Brevard, other than driving through. And we walked around on New Year's Day, and we looked at what was available and what wasn't, and that led to a whole journey, much longer story. I've already bent your ear a little too long on this anyway. But that's, why'd I open a yarn shop? I had this dream and vision as much as 10 years ago. And I feel like every single thing, I think most people could probably say this, everything I've done up until now has helped with running the business. Being a teacher, because I still teach. I ran the yearbook program at my last school for 4 years, and that has helped so much with graphic design, with templates, with newsletters for you all. Communication skills, all these other things, like all these advanced degrees that I don't use to teach anymore. I still use them. I still use everything that's happening. Yeah. And all those things I mentioned before about the ex-husband, the being let go from my job up in Pennsylvania, all these other things, this wouldn't be a reality without all of that. So I've been through some good times and some bad, but I'm really happy that I'm where I am now. So, the more you know. Ta-da! Warm fuzzy moment. So a fiber friend, thank you very much. And there's a PS, who taught you to knit/crochet? I've talked for a while. Liz, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I got a book because my husband, after we got married and first kid and everything, he joined the Army, and his first duty assignment was Germany. So, I was like, what am I going to do? Like,
did you get a German book?
No. I went to Walmart and I taught myself to crochet, and it came.
Walmart in Germany?
No, Walmart.
Oh, here. Okay. Here. I'm still hooked on this, like, Germany. Everything's happening in Germany. No, you go back.
Yeah,
okay.
Well, it was before we left, and I got a book. I taught myself to crochet, and it even came with hooks and a little bit of
I did one of those, like,
yeah, and the book, and I taught myself to crochet. My mom is crafty, but not.
My mom is not.
My mom does
she
like
gardens.
Needlepoint or embroidery, and she sews.
It looks like needle felting, but I know I get it.
Yeah, she sews. She, now she goes to Pinterest and looks at a picture, and she can do the wreathy things and the pumpkin-y things, and crafty runs in the family, but nobody does yarn crafts. Like, I found out after my grandma died, she did tatting, and I wanted to tat, but when I wanted to tat, it was in the 90s, and it was like, oh, that's a dead art. Nobody does that anymore. Now everybody does it again, but well, it's coming back.
Add it to your list later.
Yeah, but I taught myself, and then I learned to knit. I joke that I was bullied into knitting. Not by Rebecca. Rebecca didn't care whether I knew how to knit or not before I started working here. And she was like, you don't have to, you don't have to teach, you don't have to. And I'm like,
our customers, on the other hand,
there were a knit night bunch that was like, well, if you're going to work here, you have to know how to knit so you can help us with our mistakes. And I wound up learning to knit, but
She could cable in her head though before she could knit.
Yeah,
She absorbed things from my classes.
because I'd listened to her classes while running register and everything. If I had, especially if I had time to sit or whatever, I could listen to her classes. And she teaches, I could do it in my head. And I'm like, I can cable now. And she goes, you can't knit. And I would walk her back through everything she said in the class. And wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was the second thing I did after I learned to knit. I was like, I went home with my cable needles and I was like, ooh, I can make cables. See? And
Yeah.
so
Okay. I learned to knit first, and I have memories of being taught to knit by other elementary school kids on the playground. Don't remember who, but someone's showing me, and thinking the whole turning around your hands to knit was dumb, like the needles. So because I'm left-handed, I learned righty knitting, or English style throwing, and then I started trying to go back and forth instead of doing the purl stitch. So for a while I was doing the back and forth. I have a friend of my mom's who swears she taught me to knit when I was a teenager, and I'm sorry, Percy, I don't remember that. It's very possible. There are a lot of gaps in my memory though. There's a lot of things I don't remember from the 40 plus years of my life. So and then when I graduated from college, the turn of the century, I got a book, just like you, for crocheting. I got a book and said I should learn how to do this properly. And it was like the big book of knitting. It's a classic. And I taught myself to knit from that. And then that got me started. And then everything there's so many things I have taught myself or watched videos or just tinkered around with. Like all of my Fix Your Mistakes classes are based on things I have just tried and gone, nope, that didn't work. Let's try again. Learn from your mistakes. Micro lessons for life. I feel like there's so many things in knitting and crafting that you can apply to the big scale of life. There's so many things. Probably why it got me through so many hard times and why I wanted to open the yarn shop. So then crochet, I've told the story before of I was doing craft shows for something totally unrelated to knitting. I think I threw some really weird knit things into it, but it was not about knitting. My sister was crocheting baby blankets, and I looked at her, and we've had some conversations about where she learned to like crochet, knit, and stuff. And I looked at her and went, the infamous, she doesn't have a crafty bone in her body. She does. At the time, again, it was around 2005 or so. I was, I've grown since then. I made assumptions. And I said, well, she can do it, I can do it. And I went into it with, I knit, I can crochet. Took me a while to learn. I learned from a CD-ROM though, from Joann's. I learned from, Coates and Clark or one of those companies. Little disc you put in your computer. Most computers don't even have the hole for that anymore. And I watched videos. It was like pre-YouTube. There were still videos, but that's how you did it, right? So I taught myself by watching videos of other people crochet. And since then I've taken off. And I totally retract the whole no crafty bone in her body. She has many crafty bones and does really cool stuff. So, but it inspired me to learn. So here I am, doing both. And I think both are awesome. And that kind of lends itself to the next letter, which we should get to because we got about 13 minutes until we might have at least one person knocking on our door. So thank you, a fiber friend. That kept us going for a while. Might not even have time to try on my Wakanda Forever today, which means y'all will get to see it finished instead of almost finished. 3D painting of a jellyfish. Okay.
I like it.
Did you want to read this one?
Yeah.
No. She's busy crafting. Okay.
I found it. I found my happy. Anyway.
If we don't have time to talk about it today, she'll tell you more next week. Dear Becky and Lizzy, I have a question about hand winding yarn into cakes using a Nostipin or a faux step-in, which I hadn't heard of before. I haven't researched that one, but I bet it's cool. What's the best way to keep the right amount of twist in the yarn? Does the direction of winding matter? Should I pull from the center at the south end of the cake? Does yarn S versus V twist matter? A lot of questions in here. We'll address what we can. I enjoy hand winding, but I want the yarn to come out with the right amount of twist. Sincerely, a twisted sister. I like that. I don't have that much experience hand winding. I will say that right off the bat. I mean, Liz, you hand wind more balls.
I hand ball. I don't.
Ball, not the nostipin, right? I am learning how to nostipin. I've used it about 4 or 5 times now, and it's been quite enjoyable. But I don't do a lot of hand balling or hand winding.
Every now and then I'll wind the ball and the yarn will get kind of twisty or untwisty. And I've never paid enough attention to it to go, huh.
And that's the,
and with a cake, with the winding the cake, some people say it makes a difference which direction you wind, and some people are like,
it sounds like our twisted sister here has had issues with this. I will say again, I'm trying not to.
I'm
done. I've only hand wound about 4 or 5 balls in the nostipin, and I have not noticed an issue personally. I'm trying to think about where my nostipin is at the moment. There it is. What I will say is I had some issues when I was winding. The yarn was already in a project and it was a messy ball, and I was holding it here and the project is over here, and I was winding. It would, because I'm rotating the nostipin, it was twisting up the yarn exponentially, and I had to untwist that when I had to like roll the ball to untwist it when I was done. So I was twisting it up too much. And I'm trying to think. We were also talking about, I'm going to ponder on this another second or two. But that's a different issue when the tail is loose on here. It shouldn't make a difference what's happening down here to the yarn. Now what's happening up here is a whole nother thing. I want to address though the S versus Z twist, because some people might never have heard of this, and I've only run into a little bit of this. It's whether a yarn is spun clockwise or counterclockwise. And Liz, you have some experience with when you have multiple plies of yarn. Like yarn is made by spinning the roving, the fibers into a twist, and then when you ply it,
you have to spin the other way.
You have to spin it in the opposite direction for it to actually ply around. Like 2 yarns to spin around each other, or crazy things happen.
Yeah.
And
like they don't stay twisted.
Yeah, see, I haven't done any of this. And so it's been fascinating to kind of vicariously experience some of this or hear about some of this on my knit nights and things like that. But I didn't know there were different twists to yarn. And that can affect, if you're a knitter or crocheter, you can have, like we say here, you can knit and crochet with any yarn in the shop. Now, how splitty or how untwisted or twisted it will remain can depend on if it has an S twist or a Z twist. And I was looking in here because I will forget which direction. Okay, so an S twist yarn, because it's the ply of the yarn versus the twist of the original yarn is what I'm looking at here. This says, I'm looking at, it's Nikki's Homemade Crafts. I'm trying to decipher what the web address is. Not Nick's. Nikki's Homemade Crafts. S twisted yarn was spun clockwise, and I'm thinking that means it's plied clockwise. I'm not sure, but S twisted yarn is spun clockwise, and Z twisted yarn is spun counterclockwise. And the reason it has those names, like if you look at yarn, this has an S twist. Because if you imagine like the letter, the S, this part of it, the middle part of it, if you lay that over the plies, does it go this way or does it go this way? And like S or a Z, like that middle leg of it. I saw a picture in my research I was doing this morning. I was like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense. So if I was going to draw a letter over this with the middle bar of the letter being slanting the same direction as the twist, if I look at this one, it's an S. And if it was a Z twist, it would slant the other direction, this way, that way.
So like a forward slash, a backward slash.
Yes, absolutely.
For computer.
But Z and S were predate computer talk.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know. Anyway, but yeah, web addresses, forward slash, backslash, that kind of thing. So, so 90% of yarn probably has an S twist. It's just like most of the yarn world is a little bit more knitting friendly. Z twist is going to be better for crocheters. S twist is going to be better for knitters, but technically you can work with either. But if you notice it unplying, that could be why. And here's why. Like, that's the case. We've talked a little bit about this before. Most knitting techniques, you are wrapping around your tool counterclockwise, this way. Even if you're picking as a continental knitter, it's going around your tool counterclockwise. So that, and the S yarn is spun clockwise. So it keeps its twist. Even when you're wrapping it around, its twist is staying where it's supposed to. But crocheting, I could say you go over the tool this way. You come around your tool clockwise. So a clockwise spin, and when you're holding the yarn with good tension and bringing it around your tool clockwise, they will go against, they'll go against each other. It works. Trust me on that. There's written stuff that kind of can back you up on that. So a Z twist yarn, there are like Lion Brand and Furls Crochet, they make yarn that is Z twist specifically for crocheters. You can knit and crochet with any yarn, but you might notice unplying issues if you're a knitter or crocheter more with one yarn than another. It can also depend on how tightly it has been plied and spun. There's so many issues. So I'm wondering if with the Nostipin, to get back to our question here, like I'm a lefty. So when I wrap my Nostipin, I'm holding it in my right hand and I'm wrapping with my left and I'm twisting counterclockwise as I go. I'm just kind of thinking through this out loud. And you said when you handball, you wrap with your right hand.
Yep.
And which means if a righty might hold this Nostipin, and I mean, it depends if you I turn away from myself. I turn out like this. If I was holding it with my left hand and was turning out, I would be, well, it depends. If I was going this way, I'd be going clockwise. I think a lot of it's going to depend on which way you're turning the Nostipin.
And which way you're wrapping.
And which way you're wrapping. Like I go like this. I twist and go up and down and twist. And how well it stays on the Nostipin, I'm finding how you spin it. Jessica was giving us this advice. You come into a rhythm of what's going to work for how slow or fast you're spinning your Nostipin. But that would be an interesting thing to scientifically test. You know, we can anecdotally say, well, I haven't had.
I've had issues.
But if you're not paying attention
to, I haven't paid attention enough to the why. Like, because I'd rather knit or crochet, and I really.
So to revisit these questions, the right amount of twist in the yarn, the direction of winding, does it matter? Should I pull from the center at the south end of the cake? Does the yarn S versus V twist matter? I don't really know, but all of these are really good questions. And it's something that that you, Twisted Sister, or we should pay attention to the next time we're winding. Like I said, I haven't had a lot of issues. I'm twisting my Nostipin. I'm twisting my Nostipin counterclockwise, and I'm wrapping over, like if I'm thinking about how my yarn is also going around in the cake that is making counterclockwise. And maybe that's why I haven't had any issues, or it's hard to say. So Twisted Sister, how are you winding your yarn? Are you also rotating the same way? Like I'm thinking righty, I'm kind of doing the lefty loosey thing. If I was looking down at the top of it. Right?
Righty tighty, lefty.
Yeah. That would be fascinating. I'd love a follow-up from you if you want to write us another letter, or, you know, if we notice anything, we'll try to report on it.
The one thing I am thinking, like when we're winding yarn on the Swift, one way winds much better. That's true. We've gone into the counterclockwise of this. I forget how that rotates, but you know. And then, but with like the Knitter's Pride and the Royal Winder, that's also counterclockwise, because I've got an arrow on my yeah, we had to draw an arrow because if you wind the other way, the little thing will pop off. So
yeah, the little centerpiece only locks in one way, and if you go clockwise, it will twist it right out of its socket.
So that could.
So that counterclockwise is a theme right now.
Yeah. That. But who knows? Like.
And I could go around and look at all the yarn in the shop and try to report back on how much seems to be an S twist. But my experience is that, and a lot of research will tell you that a good chunk of yarn is S twist, and that could be because they're making it for knitters. They have knitters more in mind, or that's just how they've been taught if it's hand done. I don't know. So, do you have your yarn with you?
My spinny?
Yeah.
No.
I was gonna say. Does yours have an S or a Z twist? I don't know.
When I spin the roving the first time for the single plies, I spin it clockwise.
Okay, so the ply goes counterclockwise. When
it twisties that way, and then when I ply them together, I have to spin my spinny thing counterclockwise.
Well, and a lot of your spinning, like I would love to look at your yarn the next time we have it in here to see if it's S or Z twist, and then we could say. I would imagine maybe it's a Z twist, which would make sense because most of what you've been making. Wait, does she have some? Most of what she works with until she came to the yarn shop, and she spun long before she came to the yarn shop, was for crocheting. So I don't know if intuitively you did that or not.
I don't think I spun intentionally for.
It's an S twist.
It's an S twist.
Yep. Which is probably, when you learned or how you learned.
Yeah, everybody's like, spin this way.
Do this way.
Like, okay.
Yep. Anyway, so and I might be quoting some stuff wrong because I'm trying to look real fast because we're running out of time. So, but that's fascinating. We did some fascinating, like, I feel like Bill Nye the Science Guy or something. Not really. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed some of these philosophical story sharing, just ruminating on what could possibly be an answer to some of these questions. But we should go. It's 10 o'clock. Liz is knitting with such yummy yarn. We're going to have to talk about that on Tuesday. Cliffhanger. My Wakanda Forever is probably within a few rows of being done. I was so tired last night. So tired. Oh my gosh. I want to finish it this weekend. I don't really have any knitting left on it as far as I can tell, except for really rudimentary, making sure it's long enough. Y'all saw it on Tuesday. It hasn't really grown since Tuesday. And I want to block it and sew it together. We were going to try to clip it onto me today, and we're out of time. So anyway, stay tuned. And okay, so first, dear Becky and Lizzy.
Yes.
Yeah, the oohs in a second. If you would like to have some questions answered, write us at Dear Becky and Lizzy, Sun Dragon Art and Fiber, 35 South Broad Street, Brevard, North Carolina. I got distracted and almost lost where I was.
28712.
Thank you. We'll see what we get to next week. You can always email Liz, but right now I'm going to say, write us a letter. And join us on Saturday. It's Local Yarn Store Day. I'm trying to say this is my last chance on YouTube to get out there. Local Yarn Store Day, September 12th. The shop won't be open, which some people might be really disappointed if they try to visit the shop. But we're going to have a safer at home virtual sit and stitch and customers coming up. So Liz is going to have to run away while I wrap up with this. She's looking at interchangeable needle sets.
Okay.
But say hi to her first.
Okay.
And join us on Facebook or on Zoom from 1 to 5 on Saturday. And I'm going to try to figure out between now and then maybe some fun discount codes I can let y'all know while you're stitching with us. So join us. Yay! Have a good day. Bye.